Right, so the next album we're going to cover in this deep dive is Phlebotomized with their 1994 release, Intense Suspense. Now, Phlebotomized, well, at the time of this album, because they've always had a bit of a rotating lineup, are a 7-piece avant-garde experimental death metal band from Rosenberg, South Holland. So this album was released in September 1994 on Cyber Music, which is a Dutch label. Now, talking of strange albums, this album ranks all the way up there. I have been... Now, Phlebotomized, there's so much I could say about this album. For anybody who's ever listened to this fucking album, it has got the most insane amount of tempo changes, transitions.
Go off, King.
It's fucking absolutely bonkers. And the weird thing is, before I get into this album, I just want to talk a little bit about this band, is this isn't even the weirdest album in their discography. No. Have you ever listened to Sky Contact?
Yeah.
Their second? It's fucking so strange.
It's so weird.
Like, it's got like full, like proper, like, it got weird song titles, like I stole your cookies at the disco. And like, and the last 4 tracks are like a 4-part track with the same like melody and refrain just played different. Like, it's so odd.
This album isn't as goofy as Sky Contact.
No, this album is Sky Contact. I do love in its own unique way, and I just find it hilarious that when they've reissued this album, it's been reissued with Sky Contact. Just thinking that someone's listened to Intense Suspense and immediately went on to Sky Contact, and they're just like...
That's what I did. Because this album isn't on Spotify at the moment. The band recently posted saying that they're trying to get it back on Spotify. But I bought it. You can go to the Phlebotomized Bandcamp and you can buy both this album and Sky Contact for, I think it was like £3.50 on Bandcamp. So I implore you,
steal.
Go and do that because it's well worth it. Just for this album alone. Sky Contact's a bonus because this album is fucking dope. It's so good.
It's such a good album, and I'll tell you, we're going to do a quick head count of who we've got in the band at the recording of this album. So you've got the brilliantly named Ben Quack on keyboards, Dennis Geestman on vocals, Patrick Vandersea on bass, Lawrence Payne, drums and lyrics, Geordie Middelbosch on guitars, Tom Palms on guitars, who I believe is the one founding member. Yeah. So he is the remaining founding member. And Martin Post on violin. Now, it's funny because when you hear violins, I always think of bands like My Dying Bride and that have incorporated.
There's moments on this album that super just straight up sound like My Dying Bride, but not the whole thing for sure. Yeah.
No, but I think what this band manages to do with the violins is much in a similar kind of way of how Disembowelment don't get caught up in the tropes of, some of the Death Doom kind of cliches. Like, I think the violins are used, quite, I wouldn't say sporadically, but bizarrely. Like, it's just, there's some real moments in here where the violins punctuate like some bizarre rhythm sections, and it's just, and the synths are super prominent in the mix as well.
They do really weird. There's like one song where they're accentuating the guitar riff with a xylophone patch on the keyboard. Yeah, and it's like ding ding ding, but it works. It weirdly works. It doesn't sound shit. It sounds great.
It's. I fucking love this album. I can't remember how I even discovered Phlebotomized.
Because you have a shirt for this album cover, right?
Yeah.
And I think we were interviewing Cam. And you wore that shirt, and I spent the whole episode behind the camera looking at your shirt going, what's that fucking band, man?
It's a cool album cover. It's got this creature that looks a bit like Gollum from
it's
Lord
like
of the
a
Rings.
Gollum thing on a mountain or something. And then the logo is this gorgeous orange colour.
Yeah. Oh, it's a good logo. Like, it's a nice design as well. And it's interestingly, like, they've got such a strange progression as a band, because I think their last EP they released, because they've reformed after like almost like a 20-year absence, is a bit more similar to some of their earlier demos, which are far more steeped in like the more traditional, like Autopsy-esque, like Death Doom kind of sounds. Whereas this album is kind of firing on all cylinders, but there's just so much interesting stuff happening.
So I just looked it up. I think the only member of the band left now since they reformed is Tom Palms.
Yeah.
I think everyone else is gone. He's got new guys. Yeah. But I didn't realise that Sky Contact is mostly the same lineup.
I think it's the same. If I remember correctly, I think the violinist left and was replaced by somebody that started handling bass duties and...
Yeah, that's right. Jarrow
Stuhl Rajta.
Yeah.
Yeah, but apart from that, I think it's the same members, right?
Yeah. Which is interesting because of how different the drums are. But Yeah.
But it's so this album starts with Barricade, which I love this fucking track. Can I just say for the record, some of the grooves in the rhythm section in this album are so fucking catchy.
There's some fantastic riffs on this album.
Overall, I actually think it's a really, really catchy album, and it's something that should not work on paper, but it manages to somehow pull all these elements and things that were relatively new to the table at the time, and create this concoction of doomy avant-garde death metal that just totally fucking slaps. I love it.
Yeah, well, this was released 3 years after Nevermind, which is how I'm just going to look at all death metal now. Yeah, it's just really fucked me up because I think I thought in my head that Nevermind came out in like 95. It's just really fucking me up to think that it came out in 91.
Yeah, no, it's do you know what? Because I used to think that as well until I think I looked it up one day and was just like, oh, it's actually a bit earlier.
I just imagined that the first couple of years of the 90s was just all sick death metal. Nothing else came out apart from that and like some Paul Abdul songs, and then that was it. And then Nevermind came out.
But I think I just want to give people a taste of what they're in for on this album. So there's a part where you've got there's like a really sick like pummeling. Well, firstly, you get really like morose, clean vocals that sound like Hetfieldian in tone.
The clean vocals, they're ever so slightly out of tune in the first bit, but I love it personally.
I love it.
I think they're great, and that there's something about that melody where it is like the first time you hear it, a little bit like ooh, and then like. The thing is, like later that day, I promise you will just find yourself singing them to yourself. They're fantastic because I think that's one thing I read in interviews. Like they're obsessed with melody.
Yeah.
In this band, and they're like, we really like heavy riffs, but it was like I really loved reading interviews with Tom Palms. Like more like latter day interviews. He seems like a very jovial, funny, kind of cute human being.
Oh, okay.
He seems really fun. Oh, I think I saved some classics.
I love that excerpt you were saying earlier.
Yeah, it was really funny. There was this interview like where someone interviewing the couple of the guys from the newer the version of Phlebotomized, and the interviewer was like, there was so much exciting music going on in the early 90s, and he's like, did you guys catch the train of like what was going on? And then like Tom Palms was just like, the interviewer was called Alex, and Tom Palms like, no, Alex, we did not catch the train. We did not. No, we didn't. We weren't picked up. We played a couple of good gigs, and that was it.
We were 3 hours too early.
3 hours. Yeah,
got the wrong train.
No one liked what we were doing. Yeah, but we had fun, and it's like he's really cute. And he was just like, I really like that. He's just saying they've always been obsessed with things being heavy. And he was like, and they listed all the classic. They always thought that they always loved like Morbid Angel and Autopsy and all these bands. But yeah, they always wanted things to be like melodic as well. And that was what they were pursuing. That's obviously why they had so many members in the band too, because they're pursuing melody.
Yeah. Which is, it's interesting because you think 1994, At the Gates dropped Slaughter of the Soul in 95 or 96.
Yeah.
Right? And that is like the perennial blending of melody and brutality.
Yeah.
Like of the melodeath scene, but in a very commercial kind of veneer.
Yeah.
But like,
is it commercial? I mean, it's easy to look at Slaughter of the Soul and call it commercial now, but was it back then?
See, I don't think it was back then. I think it's only because it's been aped by those
Kill
second
Switch
wave
Engage
bands
and all that stuff. It's really easy to look at Slaughter of the Soul and be like, oh, this is so commercial, but like, I don't think it was, man. Like, I think when like In Flames were doing like fucking Clayman and all that shit, and I can't believe it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was only because they like actively pursued that, or like I think obviously At the Gates were like, oh holy fuck, a lot of people like this album. Let's play a lot of fucking.
Yeah.
I got a lot of respect for that band as well. They always stuck to their guns and never really and apparently like they seem like really nice guys.
Yeah, no, and so I've got. They've always been one of my favorite bands, and there's some strange parallels because you listen to the first two At the Gates albums, particularly the first one with The Red Sky's Ours, and they have a violinist.
No.
Yeah.
I've never listened to... I have to be honest, I'm not a huge At the Gates guy.
Yeah.
But I think that's just because I never really got into like that melodeath thing. It never really stuck with me.
Their first two albums are really interesting because the first one is doomier and has a lot more parallels with Phlebotomized.
No way.
Than
that's
it does with the later melodeath scene.
They're Swedish, aren't they? They're from Gothenburg, right? Yeah.
And then the second album, with Fear I Kissed to Burn in Darkness, is like a really kind of like... It's got more like akin to like Dismember and a lot of the other Swedish bands at the time, but it's really abrasive and raw production. But there's some hidden gems in that album.
Damn, I have to check that out.
But the interesting thing, so Red Sky Vows they had a violinist back then, so it's
At the Gates had a violinist. That's mind blowing.
so there was, and you could tell that there was something stirring in the waters around about that time.
Yeah.
That bands were, for every band that was trying to become heavier or more technical or slower, like your Devourments, your slam bands. You had bands that were pushing the envelopes out into other.
I mean, dude,
sounds.
like Sweden must have been fucking insane back then, right?
Mental,
like fucking Entombed, like Opeth.
Yeah,
fucking
like Grave. I fucking love Grave.
Grave, like there's so many bands came out around then from there, like especially like obviously the whole Gothenburg sound kind of thing. But yeah, Phlebotomized. So we I can't remember if you mentioned it, but they're Dutch, right?
They are Dutch, yeah.
And what other great Dutch bands are there? There's like Pestilence are Dutch, aren't they?
Pestilence are Dutch. You've got Sinister, are quite a good Dutch death metal
I
band.
don't really know Sinister. I know the name, but I haven't listened to them.
You got
Creep Mime.
Creep Mime, yeah.
And that's another album I'd love to do on one of these in future.
That'd be a great one.
No one's heard of Creep Mime. Stupid fucking name, but what a sick band.
Asphyx.
Oh, of course.
Hail of Bullets.
Asphyx are sick. Oh, Hail of Bullets are actually from... That makes sense as well. Anyone where someone in the band's got a name where it's like Vand or whatever, they're either South African or Dutch.
Yeah, so true. But I think... So, going back to this album, what I wanted to just... Because I really... For the uninitiated, those who've never listened to this album, I want to just give them a little taster of the sort of things you experience in this first track. So you get this really sick, like groovy pummeling rhythm section with like loads of triplets and like double bass hits. And then it kind of stops. These hardcore gang vocals come in.
Yeah, the gang vocals, yeah.
And then that immediately transitions into a violin section with a real like melodic Paradise Lost style.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what the fuck? I've had like a death metal riff. Yeah. Gang vocals, a violin, clean vocals.
It's
like,
so good, man.
So much shit going on. And like the first track, I think Barricade is actually, even though it's not my favorite track on the album, I think it's a perfect encapsulation of the album as a whole. It's a great introduction to the album.
I think I'd argue. I think if I was going to tell someone to listen to a standalone song from this album, I'd tell them to listen to Dubbed Forswear.
Oh, it's my favorite
because that's such a good fucking track, dude. It's so fucking good.
So good.
I think another thing I love about this album is you're talking about weird time signatures and stuff. You can hear the guy counting in, and he counts in 6/8. Yeah. The first section's in 6/8.
Oh, is it?
Which is great. Yeah, which is not like a regular ass time signature. It's not like every song's in fucking 6/8. You know what I mean? As a musician, I just love that. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then you're like counting out the section when it comes in. You're like, that's sick.
So from like a musician's perspective, like is there a lot in this guitar work that appeals to you then?
Oh yeah, like hugely. I'm a big fan of like. I love like blending things, and you can't necessarily always figure out where they're from. Yeah. Because I think that's something I really love about Yob.
Oh yeah.
Because like I'm a big like I think with Mike Scheidt he was a big like growing up he loved hardcore and like metal and death metal. And he was like the kid at hardcore shows with long hair, and everyone's like, "What the fuck are you doing here, loser?" That was me, dude. I used to go to hardcore shows all the time with long hair, and people were like, "You fucking hippie," you know. I was just, And then when I had short hair, I'd go to metal shows, and they'd be like, "Fuck off, you fucking whatever, you pretty boy," or whatever. Like it didn't matter. Like it just never fit in. No one gives a shit now. No one cares. But like that alone, that an album came out at like 94. Yeah. With like hardcore gang vocals and like a violin is weird. Like people don't get like now everything's a melting pot and it's really normal. I love that personally. I think it's fantastic that finally no one gives a fuck what you wear, what you look like, how many members your band. Oh, I mean, I care. If a band hasn't got one member with long hair, like they better be playing hardcore. And even most hardcore bands have guys with long hair in them now.
I think the worst is when you've got like if you've got loads of members that have short hair and they're still trying to do the windmill headbang. I'm just thinking like it just doesn't look right. It just looks like a worm trying to get out the dirt.
Yeah, you better be bald or have long hair or be like or just look tight.
You've got to either be large, skinny, or jacked. Those are the three body types. You can't be normal sized in the metal scene.
Last gig I was talking to a guy that came to see us, and there was one of the other bands was playing, and this guy was talking to me. He was just like, there was a band. I'll say I'm not going to throw him under the bus. And it's not my personal opinion, but it made me laugh. And this guy, they all had like short office haircuts, and the guy he came up to me. He's like, these dudes all just fucking look like fucking accountants, man. He was just like, these people like fuck off. If you're not going to try, don't bother. I respect that, man. I think that's a really like commit to the bit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's easy for me to say. My whole life is like I'm a metal guy.
Yeah.
If I can't get a fucking job with like where I can look like this, I'm like, oh well, guess I'll fucking starve. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But these people, like, it's so clear from reading interviews and stuff. Like, Tom is like a metal fucking guy, and like they just lived the life, and they were so passionate about it, and I love that dude. You can hear. There's a word I use a lot, and like when I'm talking about a lot of my favorite music now is joyous.
Yeah.
This album is joyous. You can hear how much the people playing this album are enjoying playing instruments and playing music together.
Yeah, I think you're right, because it's in many ways, it's kind of like, even though you can argue it's got similarities in terms of like genre definements to Disembowelment, it's like sonically, it's like an antithesis almost. Like, 'cause it is more joyous sound, and there are moments, like I think when we get to the last track, Gone, the ballad, I think there is some like even though the vocals can come across as quite corny, I think it sounds achingly sad. But we'll get to that in a bit. But it's and speaking of the vocals, actually, like I love the vocals on this album. I think you can't underestimate how pioneering this band was for a lot of things they were doing.
Yeah.
And what you said, like, this is why I think it's so important to cover albums like this,
Yeah,
because there are bands that were doing shit that is popular now that don't get the credit for what they were doing. Like, this band was doing clean vocals, like crooning, like Michael Ackerfeld style cleans, and other vocal styles such as like your classic death metal grunts. Like, much in the same way, this band would have been around the same time as Edge of Sanity. So while Dan Swano was doing like the clean vocal and harsh vocal mix-ups, like this band were around at the same time doing that as well.
Yeah, Orchid came out in '95.
Yeah, so
what, like, I think, because wasn't is it Edge of Sanity?
Edge of Sanity,
It is Edge of Sanity, yeah. Wasn't Edge of Sanity a direct result of Swano recording Opeth? Like, didn't he see?
I'm not sure about
Oh,
that,
no,
actually.
okay, no, because like the thing, I listened to a bunch of interviews with Dan Swano, and he said that like he basically kind of like had like projects, and they would have like a name. And then, like, he would do a bunch of stuff with a bunch of other people, and he'd be like, he was like in a record contract for Edge of Sanity, so he'd be like, this is the new Edge of Sanity album. But like, is it Crimson? Is the big one, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's the
like Crimson came
track,
out in '96. Yeah, Purgatory Afterglow. It was that came out in '94, so that came out the same year as this. Purgatory Afterglow is weird, man. Like, half of it sounds like Buffy the Vampire Slayer music.
Oh, it's bizarre, isn't
It's
it?
weird,
Yeah.
yes. But yeah, the Crimson is the classic Edge of Sanity album, I think, that everyone goes to, and that was '96. Yeah, because like even Swano says himself, he's like, yeah, I worked with Opeth, and I was like, oh, this was what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, this was what I was trying to do. Yeah, you guys got it. Okay, cool. So yeah, Phlebotomized, this came out in '94, before Orchid.
Yeah. And it's just, and as far as I'm aware, like, like, I don't know what the fuck was in the water in the Netherlands at the time, but like, it's, like, I know more about the Netherlands scene through their black metal bands, because they've got
interesting. What Dutch black metal bands are there then?
You got Dodecahedron, you got Tzij the Horde, Fluorostars, probably butchering the name of that. Lots of good bands. Basically, I got into a lot of them when I went to Roadburn, because they had like a showcase and a curation on one of their stages in the Het Patronat, which is the stained glass church.
Right.
They just put on black metal all day.
Yeah.
And it was just fucking sick. And like the bands are pretty like righteous. They're not involved in any of the more sketchy shit like other bands, as far as I'm aware anyway.
Yeah.
But it's,
they're performing at Roadburn, you said, right?
They were, yeah. So this was when I went Roadburn in 2019. So it was
Roadburn try to do due diligence with bands. They try not to put people on who have shitty beliefs. They at least make an effort. Where there's a lot of people who are just not even trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Roadburn are quite like like socially conscious like that, aren't they?
Yeah, which is pretty good.
But yeah, man, fucking going back to Phlebotomized. So that's the first track. You got the second track. Weird song titles as well.
Yeah.
Desecration of Alleged Christian History.
Yeah, I love that one. That's a great one. Can I just say quickly, just to interject, I totally was listening to this going, oh, this band love Paradise Lost. I didn't realise. So Gothic came out in '91, but then like Icon didn't come out till like '93.
Yeah.
And then Draconian Times didn't come out till '95. So I thought like Paradise Lost were around since like '88, '89 doing demos and stuff, but I doubt they were like permeating I don't know. I can't remember when like how far back they got like big, but I think like Icon was when they really started to go off, right?
Yeah.
But that's only like a year before this, so it probably didn't have as much impact on this as I would have initially thought.
No,
Listening to this,
so.
I would have thought that they had a lot of influence on them, which is interesting.
And it's funny because I do think, like, that those are the main three that are cited as like the main influences of that sort of style. Really, you got Anathema, My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost. Right, they are massively influential, like across the pond and many other countries. But yeah, I mean, like, given how close in time this album was released, like it, Because you would think like they would have to have heard the album and then decided to record an album directly influenced by it. In the space of a few months.
Yeah, I mean that
up to a year at the most.
Unlikely. Yeah, like Turn Loose the Swans came out in '93.
Yeah,
like a year before this. So there's probably like had way. Yeah, not only that, it came out in October of '93. So for Phlebotomized to have kind of got their shit together, I doubt the turnaround. You know what I mean? Like for them to have been influenced by them, they'd have to write all of this fucking complicated ass music and record it.
Yeah.
By September of the following year, which seems kind of unlikely to me. Being a band that's fucking trying our hardest to write like more material, it's taken fucking years. But that's another story. But yeah.
But it's so second track, Desecration of Alleged Christian History. This is probably the most synth-heavy tracks. There's a lot of interesting synths here. You got some parts that sound a bit like a church organ. You've got like a really cool section where it's full on blasting with minimalist piano keys going off in the back.
I love that. Dude.
It's just like this sounds so cool.
That's when they did that. I was like, oh, this is so fucking interesting. Yeah, that's the bit. Yeah, it's just full on blasting, and it's like, because I remember hearing that and just being like, this band is so fucking clever. They're taking full advantage because the guitars aren't overpowering that bit either.
Yeah.
And like traditionally with that kind of blasting, you'd think they'd be playing. There's a lot of other bits in this album where they're like, they're doing the trip, but the guitars kind of purposefully ease off to let you really soak in this really interesting texture of the keyboards and the drums blasting simultaneously, which is, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so fucking good. Just once again, the amount of transitions is just absolutely ridiculous. And then I want to say as well, like the bass work on this album is really good as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's like some proper like Alex Webster-esque, like kind of like spidery bass work going on here. It's just like the musicianship is actually top notch. It
really is. Yeah, I have to agree. It's fantastic across the whole thing. It's beautiful.
And then what have we got? Then we move on to I think both our favorite tracks.
Yeah.
Dubbed Forswearer.
I found out what this song's about.
Oh, go on.
By accidentally, I read. It was really funny because that interview I was reading, one of the questions was, oh wait, did I quote the source? Oh, the quote. It's a Russian website, darkside.ru. The question was, your logo was designed by a guy called Mike Chung. Could you say a few words who he was and how you got in touch with him? Which Tom said, he said, Lawrence got to know the guy, but he wasn't interesting to us and to the band's history. We thank him for our logo, but beside that, there is not much to mention. Before I forget, Dubbed Forswearer from the album Intense Suspense is based on his characteristics.
Oh, fuck.
Jesus. I was like, I don't really get what he means, but it made me laugh either way. I thought you'd appreciate that.
But it's once again just like musically all over the place, but just still absolutely just
fantastic.
Fucking it's an absolutely righteous track.
Yeah, what's going on with the lyrics on this album? Let's have a look at some of the lyrics. I think get those up. I love dark lyrics. If lyrics aren't on dark lyrics, I get really sad because I just love.
I didn't even know dark lyrics was still going.
Yeah, man, it's sick. I love it. I love the layout. I love the way they just have all the album's lyrics like just in a continuous thread. You don't have to fucking click through a million pages. It's great.
It's I remember I used to back in the days, I used to print lyrics off of dark lyrics for albums that I had burned onto CDs. So I was just like, I used to try and write like little booklets of my own, like liner notes and stuff.
Oh, nice, man.
And then I realized it was just far too much effort.
Yeah. I think back those days, whenever I got paid from my like whatever job I was doing, because I've been working since I was like 14, I just always, as soon as I got paid, I'd just go to like HMV and just buy like CDs and DVDs and like old horror movies and shit.
It's
the best, man.
Days.
I love those days, man. Like a Saturday with your backpack and you go, I'm going down HMV. You're gonna get some fucking sick shit.
I remember one time I went to HMV and bought Nazem's Inhale Exhale and the so-called Dead Children album Human Harvest.
Yeah.
I fucking left it on the bus. So I had to go back and buy them again. I remember thinking, who's this fucking guy?
Yeah.
Bought the same albums twice.
Yeah, what's Satan? Yeah, that's really funny. Yeah. Who's this guy? Yeah.
But I mean, this for many reasons is probably my favorite track on the album. I really love like the kind of the emotive violin work it starts with. And I just think, a violin is an instrument that has so many textures and layers that I think when utilized properly can be like such a good,
such an emotive instrument.
like
It's
so much.
fantastic.
And there's another band totally different from Phlebotomized that I think utilize it really well. They're kind of like proggy, techie band, Nea Bliviscaris.
Ah, yeah, great band.
They've
Yeah.
got love them, and their violinist. I can't remember the guy's name. The violinist / clean vocalist does a great job of like, well, one, balancing both of those tasks and just add in something that isn't just a gimmick; it's a core element to the sound.
That's a very good point, and that's something this band do very well. Because like sometimes, and I think the reason that I personally struggle with a lot of like symphonic like shit, like metal, not shit metal, and symphonic shit, is that like if keyboard players like overplay. And this band don't overplay. They've got like a million members, but they're not always all going at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The keyboard player knows when to like ease up and let the metal be metal, and the violinist knows to not be playing through every single part of the song. But there's some bits like where that violin comes in, and all the guitars are just doing like sustained chords, and the cymbals are just crashing, and then like the violin will just come with some epic, fucking beautiful, gothic kind of like. Yeah, like there's this like folky kind of influence that it's just beautiful, really well placed throughout the album.
Yeah, it's just, and do you know what? There's a part in this track that really, it's about 4:35 where it does transition, and it sounds like a proper like Rush, Alex Lifeson style riff, and it really reminds me of the Camera Eye from the Moving Pictures album.
I love that fucking song.
That's such a good
track. Such a good track, yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that arpeggiated riff where they're like moving the bass note around, like that's to give you this like different inflection on that. It's such a cool idea. I love doing that.
Yeah.
A lot of that on the next Lowen album.
But it's just, I think it's just the combination of atmospheres as well. This is a band that manages to, blend like, a really melodic kind of atmospheric sound with just fun rhythmic grooves and just incorporating so many different sounds and styles. Like I just can't stop saying that enough. And like sometimes it can come across a bit cheesy, I think, especially some of the synth work. But I think in its nature, synths are quite cheesy, especially when it's from a certain time period. But I do like the way they blended it. I think they've done a good job.
It is, and it does. But yeah, I would implore anyone to listen to this album all the way through. And I would defy you not to enjoy it. It really is like, I think if you don't like it, then there's something kind of wrong with you, really. Because it's like, it doesn't like, I hate cheesy shit. I really get put off by cheesy stuff very quickly and a lot. And this album didn't put me off at all. I kind of love the lyrics because you can kind of tell that they're not like English isn't their native language. But I really love that. I was talking about that band War from a Harlot's Mouth, which even the band name itself is like, when I first heard that, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Yeah. Like, I really like, you know what? Like if a band uses the word harlot in their lyrics, they're usually fucking morons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you have to be like, women are bad. Like if you're an incel, it's basically like a really easy way to let people know you're an incel. But War from a Harlot's Mouth was like that. They're not like that at all, despite having that weird name. But their lyrics sometimes don't make ultimate sense in English. Like all the lyrics are in English, but sometimes the lyrics aren't the way you would normally string those words together, but they somehow get closer to the meaning despite using the words in the wrong way or like not in the proper way or whatever, like I really like that about bands that aren't English or don't have English as their native language that write in English, because there's sometimes they kind of cut to the quick and they kind of bang the nail on the head in a different way that really makes you think. And I really like that. I'm really a huge fan of that. And the lyrics on this album are a bit like that as well. And interesting, this Dubbed for Swearer, the lyrics seem to be about someone who's kind of like a daydreamer. And it's like, grievance, the cause of this life of lies, my happiness unlocking doors with symbolic keys, entering an unknown entity, swaying between two worlds, fantasy, I'm about to be swirled, green grass upon I lay, oh daydream, please lead me the way, all I wish that I'll march, eagerness messed up my mind, I'll try to get my act together, leaving the past way far behind, I build my castles in the air. Yeah, it's cool, like, it's really interesting.
But once again, just shows that, like to be like in a death metal band, you don't have to employ the same usual tropes. It doesn't have to be all gore or horror based. Like you can incorporate other lyrical elements and have fun with it, and and it's still legit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like only Carcass can make it work where you're reading a medical textbook and it sounds cool. Yeah. That's the only band where
some of their album titles.
Otherwise, it's like
amazing.
Yeah, they're incredible. But like, yeah, most other bands, but they're like, oh, I fucking cut the flesh, whatever. It's like you don't understand that violence it's not shocking with no emotional connection. And like I think that as a society we've progressed past the need to just be shocking.
Yeah.
Like I can understand why being being shocking was like rising up in the face of conservatism in the early 90s, which is what a lot of people don't really appreciate or understand about looking back at like old school brutal death metal, is that a lot of that was in response to conservative politicians all around the world trying to strangle art and control what people could do. And we're seeing that kind of start to come back with like in America, they're trying to take books out of libraries and stuff like this, you know, except now we've got the internet, so people can just fucking go read whatever the fuck they want. Like it's stupid, but it does work. Like that is how people have been oppressed throughout history, and how like a lot of different countries, nations and stuff have oppressed people, is you make them more ignorant. You take away their tools to learn, to grow, to kind of learn from history and not repeat the same mistakes as the past. You keep people stupid, you keep them eating bad food, all of this kind of stuff. Like it is it's coming back, and it's kind of quite interesting to look at that comparison through time. And that was why a lot of those bands were doing. I'm sure a lot of them were just fucking meatheads. Do you know what I mean? A lot of them were just like, oh, I just want to have a hacked in half, you know, because they were trying to be shocking. They didn't think about anything else. But now people are actually kind of making people go, okay, cool. Well, I mean, the thing I don't fucking get, right, is that if you've got like a fucking girlfriend and you're in a band in the 90s and you're like, oh yeah, we've released a new album, and it's like a fucking woman that's been hacked in half. How's that girlfriend not turn and just be like, fuck are you doing?
I know,
but I guess society probably was just less like that. I guess women felt less comfortable to be able to make calls like that or make statements like that. And matured, hopefully.
I think we've just got to a point now where we realise that, you know, like shit like that is harmful. And it's like, you know, like if you look at a band like Devourment, I think Devourment have like renounced a lot of their previous like song titles. And
I respect that, dude. Yeah.
Like, you know, like we've realised that the shit's actually, you know, what we thought was just, you know, like a bit of harmless fun is actually ended up being like, you know, is, you know, you can't, the problem is you can't guarantee how other people are going to take it.
Yeah.
Despite what your intentions are.
Yeah. And that's that you can still be fucking brutal. That's like people act like, oh, things are being fucking mummied down and made weak and blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry, you don't need all that shit to be fucking brutal. You know, Bolt Throwers sang about how fucking shit war is.
Yeah.
And they're one of the most brutal bands that ever existed.
Exactly.
They didn't need to be like, like they were talking about like, it fucking sucks that like people are being killed and they're never getting to see their fucking children and families ever again. This fucking sucks. War is fucking stupid. And of course, there's still probably fucking bootlickers that are like, war. You know, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like, you know, I think 1914 do a great job of kind of continuing that same kind of sentiment as well.
Man, I hope those guys are doing okay.
Yeah, no, that's just crazy what's going on out there at the moment.
It's horrible.
Right, so we've got the next track, In Search of Tranquility, which is kind of like an interlude as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you listen to this through the Bandcamp page, this is actually combined with the next track, Subtle Disbalanced Liquidity. But it's actually two separate tracks on the original CD release.
Oh, that's it is, because In Search of Tranquility it's like an acoustic guitar, right?
Yes.
And it's got the like beep.
It's almost like a bit Call of Cthulhu, Metallica sort of esque. And then and then it's got like just builds to a good atmosphere, and then you've got Subtle Disbalanced Liquidity, which is just starts up furiously with just the band firing on all cylinders with like some
that's a fucking great one.
Some great fucking synth going on in the back before it once again transitions into some straight up gang vocals.
You know what's what? I can't believe Ride the Lightning, because like Metallica, as much as I don't listen to them at all anymore, I don't really care for what they do. I did get into metal because of Metallica, and Ride the Lightning was 1984. That's so wild when you think about it. Like all of these bands were just influenced by Metallica.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's funny because it's when you see like the parentage or the like the genealogy tree of metal, and like, you know, so many bands. It's funny because it's almost kind of cool to shit on Metallica a little bit now, right? Oh yeah. And there's so many bands, so many of your favorite bands were influenced by Metallica. You could just keep going further back.
My first band was a Metallica tribute band.
Yeah. And then, you know, like, you know, they were influenced by bands like, you know, your Maidens, your Priests, your Sabbaths. They were influenced by the Beatles. Like,
Maiden's a big one. Everyone.
Yeah.
Like in his interviews where is it Tom? He's again like he's just like he basically he says he's like, when I heard Maiden's twin guitar melodies, he was like, this is the best thing ever. Like he says that in interviews. He's like, Maiden are a huge influence on this band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's do you know what? It's funny as well because we've publicly shouted Maiden quite a lot on this podcast.
I mean, I don't care for them.
Yeah, but it's not so much us, but like most of our guests end up shitting on Maiden.
No, I mean,
we've actually got an even mix. I think we've had half people who are quite big fans.
Yeah, it's 50-50.
Yeah.
I met Bruce Dickinson at a party once. He was a very, very nice gentleman. He was very good to me, very kind to me.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, he's nice. Yeah, I just don't really care for the music. I don't care for the.
But it's the same thing that you can't understate how influential they are.
Yeah,
and it's just like the twin guitar melodies. I think even the bass as well. The way Steve Harris kind of almost attacks the bass as opposed to if you're using a lot of power chords and he's
yeah. Have you ever heard British Lion?
No.
Steve Harris has a band, like a separate his band.
Oh, I've never heard this.
Oh fuck, dude! I gotta show you. It's so fucking funny.
Really?
Yeah, he has this band British Lion, and they've got it's really bad, but they've got this album and the bass is just so high in the mix.
Yeah.
It's jarring how loud his bass is in the mix.
Really?
It sounds fucking terrible. I've got to show you this. It's so funny.
It's like his band. She was like, fuck it. The bass is as fucking is the main thing here.
It's the Steve Harris, and there's like a bunch of people that could be like his nephews or something.
Oh,
and then there's like a Creed style guy singing. It's so fucking funny, dude.
Oh, mate,
yeah, they're called British Lion.
Wow, that's not a good name.
Yeah,
it's you mentioned Creed. I don't give a shit. some Creed songs fucking slap in my opinion.
I've never listened to him. I always hated his voice.
Yeah, but yeah.
So I guess the thing is like a lot of these bands, like they're a bit older than us. They grew up like I grew up like as much as Metallica were the first band. Of course, then there's the next wave. Like I was saying, like my first extreme bands were Obituary and 6 Feet Under. And I was like, oh, this is the real shit. And that was when I started. So I still like Metallica, but I was like, oh, this is what's going on here? You know what I mean? I'm like, come on. Everyone's got that progression and you do get into the lighter stuff because there's more people into that shit.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis, there's more people to get you into that shit when you're growing up or whatever. Yeah. And then it's like, it's like the weird kid in your neighborhood or your strange cousin or whatever, like somebody's going to get you into the extreme stuff. Yeah. So and that's the thing, like Maiden is that band where I'm like, oh, it's not relevant to me so much, but it's cool and I get it that all these older people like them. And it was what got them further down the line into the Morbid Angels and the shit.
Exactly. It really is like rungs on the ladder. And I think, there's too much people like shitting on other people's music tastes. It seemed to be more of an internet thing than a real life thing, if I'm being honest.
That's true. I mean, I enjoy it. I like trolling and but yeah, you got to remember that like people are passionate about. We're passionate about this shit. That's why we do it every week. We fucking love metal.
Yeah.
We give a shit, so other people give a shit, and I love chatting shit, but with other people that give a shit.
But like, don't you think the best point you could reach in your musical journey is accepting the fact that you like music that's shit? And it's so much more liberating. It was just like, I know this is shit, but I love it.
Yeah, like six feet under.
Yeah.
I unironically love 6 feet under.
Yeah.
But I know that they're shit.
Yeah.
But I just love Chris Barnes. I think he's great. I can get that some people listen to some of the new albums and this is terrible. But when I first heard that shit, I thought it was sick. He sounds like a cartoon dog.
Did you ever hear? There was I think there was a Finnish death metal band called Torture Killer, I think. And he was the guest vocalist for like an album or so.
Okay.
They brought him in to do an album. And it's actually a pretty good album. Like it's
what for 6 Feet Under?
No, this is for a band called Torture Killer, I think.
Brought who in? Oh, they brought Barnes in.
Yeah, Chris Barnes on vocals for
wild, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Barnes was untouchable in the old days. Like the OG Cannibal Corpse stuff is fucking sick.
Yeah.
I remember when I was quite young, one of the first things I downloaded off LimeWire, it was like Cannibal Corpse, Roots, Bloody Roots.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's just them playing it in like a concrete basement. But his fucking...
I downloaded that off of LimeWire.
fucking vocals are so brutal.
Yeah.
I love them, man. It's like, I can see why they didn't hold up over the years. But yeah, like... Yeah. OG Cannibal Corpse, man. So good.
Good shit. And like, and I actually still think there's still.
I love new Cannibal Corpse as well. I have to say, I'm not shitting on Corpse Grinder because I love both the guys. But yeah,
they're another one of those bands where I think because they are probably the most well-known death metal bands that I think it's kind of seen as, well, I'm not sure okay is the right word, but like commonplace to shit on Cannibal Corpse. I feel like.
Yeah.
But then I think it's actually come full circle to the point where I think people actually don't give them enough credit now.
I mean, they're a big band, right? They headline huge bills. Yeah, they're like Nile. Like, I don't understand how Nile are so big when they're like very dissonant, very kind of like, right? It's weird how big Nile are. I think like they're good. and stuff. Like their technical ability is incredible. I love like George Coli's drumming, and obviously Sanders is like a great guitarist and stuff. And it's like,
Yeah, I don't know if it was just the kind of the USP of the whole lyrical subject matter and stuff, but I remember the first time I listened to the first Nile album I listened to was Black Seeds of Vengeance.
yeah, it's a banger,
And
man.
it's such a good
Is that
album.
the one
but, like,
masturbating
it's
War
so
God?
fast, and the production is not accessible. Like
Nah.
everything's muddy.
Yeah, it's
And
horrible.
it's just like, and yeah, I was thinking, bro, this band's like pretty successful, and exactly what you were saying. It didn't make much sense to me.
Yeah.
Even as much as I liked it.
Yeah. You know,
was just like, fuck.
I love. There's a great story. You know, Phil Wadey from Phil's Breakfast Metal.
Oh yeah.
On one of his episodes, he was saying that like Nile were the first extreme band that he heard, and he was like scared, and he was like, I heard it and I didn't get it, and I was like, I know it's not bad, but I'm not ready for it.
Yeah.
And for me, those bands were Akakoka and Morbid Angel. Because I heard Leviathan, because I used to have it on Kerrang. They had the videos for Leviathan.
Yeah.
And it's Enshrined in Grace, that single off of Heretic.
Yeah, I think
The Morbid album, no one likes, which is sick, by the way. It's such a
Heretic's
great
great.
album. It's a really good album.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it's not bigger. But like, yeah, that I heard that like drop fucking G or whatever it is on Enshrined in Grace, and it's like, and you're hearing this like Trey fucking riffs, and like my brain was just like, I don't get it.
That Trey who is again? Is that Trey?
Trey Azegtoth.
That clip is hilarious. For those that don't know, there's a clip of Trey pronouncing his name, or was it
His
Headbangers
own name
Ball?
on Headbangers Ball, and it's the fucking weirdest shit.
And it's not how I would have imagined his name is pronounced, but it was from his mouth, so I'm guessing that's how you
Yeah,
pronounce
Trey Azegtoth.
his stage name.
That's bizarre.
But yeah, I'm trying to think what band it was for me. It's I don't know. First time I heard Converge Jane Doe, I was pretty blown away.
I was blown away, but I knew I liked it.
Yeah, I
straight
liked it,
away.
though.
It didn't scare me away. But but it was close. It was on the line. Like yeah, Concubine was definitely hearing that. You're like, what's going on, man?
Death metal first probably was Cannibal Corpse.
But like Obituary, I got it was World Demise and Warpath were the first two extreme metal
Yeah.
albums I got, and like straight away I just got Obituary. Like there was nothing scary about Obituary for me. It's hooky and heavy, and there's nothing that makes you go, "Oh, what the fuck
Yeah.
is this?" You know, there's some bands have that thing where they're like, and Nile are like that.
Yeah.
You listen to them, you're like, "Oh, what's going on? Why is this good? I know there's people like this band. What's going on?" You know?
Yeah. I actually thought the thing with Nile that I kind of picked up on was the fact that I thought that it was strange how they had three vocalists and they're also low down in the mix.
They have
Like,
three vocalists. I thought it was just one guy.
well, Cole Sanders does like the proper.
Oh, does he? I didn't know that Carl
And then,
Sanders sung. I thought he just played guitar. Okay.
Yeah, Cole Sanders done like the super low, like almost like mummy groaning style vocals, and Dallas when he was in the band, he done like the more like classic like grunts, and there was.
Okay.
But yeah, like three whoever was in the band, the two guitarists and bassists would share vocal duties. Like John Bassano, when he was playing for them, he would do like the more mid-range sort of screams.
Okay.
But yeah, they've always had like three vocalists, and like I remember like Black Seeds of Vengeance. I was listening to it, and I'm like, I was like, I could barely make out like what's gone on vocally here.
Yeah.
But then In the Darkened Shrines came out, and that was the production was a lot better on that album.
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, this is a bit more kind of clearly defined and a bit less chaotic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and speaking of like vocal chaos, like going back to Phlebotomized here.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to lead it back in, but that was a fun little interlude either way.
Tried to do that as smoothly as possible. Yeah, you got some strange vocal mixes going on here. Like I said, you've got Dennis, who I think I've seen a live clip of them performing some of the tracks when they reformed. I can't remember which members it was with. It might have been a few more of the core members because it was meant to be just like a one-off show.
Okay,
before
yeah,
they
that
started
sounds more
recording again.
likely.
This has been back in maybe 2015 or 16.
Yeah.
And like I do know that it is because I think it is listed here. Yeah.
Dennis Geistman.
Yeah, obviously Dennis Geistman is the one doing most of the vocals. I think Tom Palms does cover some of the vocals as well.
That wouldn't surprise me because it seems like his band or whatever. So it kind of makes sense that he would kind of.
I think
step in
he's
here
doing
or
everything that isn't like the death grunt, and I think the death grunts have always been done by someone else.
there. Oh, okay.
But anyway, which track are we up to?
We just did the combo of In Search of Tranquility and Subtle Disbalanced Liquidity.
Yeah, great track. I love how furious Subtle Disbalanced Liquidity is. Once again, just a blend into the synths.
Yeah, we were listening to I was Nina couldn't be here today, obviously, and on the car before I dropped her off on the way here, we were listening to this record, and then like the guitar of like In Search of Tranquility came on, then this song came on, and Nina, like I don't think she listened to this album much before, but she was listening to this and like enjoying it for the first time. It was really cool to see her reactions. But yeah, Subtle Disbalanced Liquidity came on, and like when it kicked in, she was like, yeah. She was like, yeah, this is sick. This is a good riff.
It's there's so many good riffs and good moments on this entire album. What I find really cool about this track is you've got like quite a kind of a subdued, kind of like nice melodic lead to close off the track, but then it unexpectedly like launches into like a death metal outro.
Yeah.
And it's like repeats like the refrain from the first like part of the song.
It's just
like
the one where it's got like the cymbal hits and they sound like they're on a keyboard. They don't sound like the drummer.
a little bit,
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I think it was just this weird 90s production because some of it's
Yeah.
like, it's just how they EQ'd a lot of stuff back then. It sounded quite weird. But yeah, it's kind of like, it's like, it's quite funny. But yeah, it comes in, it's just like, whoa, you don't expect it to come back in the way it does. Yeah, it just kind of hammers you home. It's really great.
And then I think you've got the next track, Devoted to God, which I think is probably the most subdued track on the album. It's got a lot more kind of doomy chord progressions.
Yeah, it is definitely this one that I remember being quite doomy. And
Almost had, I think at times, like with my limited musical knowledge, would say that it had almost like a bit of a Middle Eastern flair to it at certain points.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
Maybe not. But yeah, just great placement of the track because I feel like Subtle Disbalance Liquidity is such an absolute raging, like schizophrenic beast of a track that it needed a track with a bit more, that incorporated a bit more like the doomier elements.
Again, this is like going back to Disembowelment. This is similar deal. There's again, what makes this such a good album is it is very well. The songs are very well placed in order. It's very thought about. Some of the songs are really great on their own if you wanted to just listen to random songs on a playlist. But as an album, it's just a really nice listening experience, start to finish. Yeah. And that is what you just mentioned is part of it. They really are consciously aware of how the song before it was in overall mood and sense of things like that. And they consciously have put this song here on the album. Knowing
it just enhances the listening experience so much because you're getting the full benefit of, or the full experience of what it is the band is trying to project. And then once again, just going back to the vocals, because I love like the cadence of the death metal vocals as well. Like I love it when, similar to what I was saying last week when we were reviewing Immolation, like with Ross from Immolation. I love how you could still be guttural but still enunciate the words properly and have like that properly. Ironically, me
really
not enunciating words properly. And then it's that full-bodied sound. Kind of reminds me of Bo from Ill Disposed and Panzer Christ.
Okay, yeah.
He's got a similar style grunt. It's a very full-bodied grunt.
Yeah, he's very full-bodied, and you can hear what he's saying as well.
Especially in the intro to Room Service.
Room Service.
Love it. But it's...
Damn, that's another one for the fucking book.
Oh, that'd be a great one to do. And I think...
we've got to bring Panzer Christ in the fold.
Oh, some of their albums are legit amazing. I love Panzer Christ.
Yeah.
And then so after Devoted to God, you then... treated
I just quickly want to say I really like the song name Devoted to God. It reminds me of there's a Meads of Asphodel song called The Man Who Killed for God.
Oh,
and I thought that's like that's a little bit like this is kind of along the similar kind of line, and I really thought that was like I love Meads of Asphodel. They're they're very like bolt thrower. They're very kind of like their whole thing is like fuck Christianity, fuck war, fuck the Crusades.
They're another band that like had a bit of a presence in the scene for a while, right?
Yeah.
But then just kind of dropped off.
Well, the thing about, they're like a studio project. They never really played. They never wrote to play live. They always write like this. Labyrinthian doesn't really make a lot of sense in a live context. A lot of the stuff they do, and they know that when they're doing it on purpose. There's a lot of collaboration and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, it's you. I think you mentioned it previously. Like this anti-God rhetoric can become very like kind of clownish, and a lot of black metal bands are just like they're just kind of like the lyrics aren't very good.
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck you, Christians, and it's like, Christianity is bad and has done bad things, but that a lot of those people that have done those bad things are also people who are living in an unchristian-like manner.
Yeah.
But that's also who you have an issue with. It's not the people, it's not necessarily Christian, it's like those people that are fucking liars, those people that will say stealing is wrong and then go and get a bunch of people to put money in a collection plate that they'll go and spend on an expensive car for themselves.
Exactly.
That's stealing.
Like their false sense of Christianity or religion is just the vessel that they're using to perpetrate their own greed, really.
Yeah.
So it's people in essence who you have the issue with. So you're 100% right there.
And I think that's what I really like about that Meads of Asphodel song, like The Man Who Killed for God.
Yeah. And
it's like when you really lay that down to the bare, it's like, oh, I'm doing this for you, God. I've got to bring enlightenment to these savages.
Yeah.
And in the Bible, it's like, thou shalt not kill.
Yeah.
It's like, So like, but Devoted to God seems to be about like, looking at the lyrics, it's more about like being like a monk and like wasting your life in like quiet. supplication,
Yeah.
and just like never knowing if you're ever going to even be acknowledged or if like you've just wasted your time on earth, which and then like Christianity has always just been a tool to kind of control lots of people.
Yeah.
Religion, sorry, a lot of the time it's just like, okay, how can we
Yeah.
get a bunch of people to kind of move in an orderly fashion and do shit, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's very interesting.
No, it's true, and it's like if to bring in a favourite of ours, if you look at Brian Head Welsh, guitarist from Korn,
Yeah,
and reading an interview, watching an interview with him once, where he was saying like his faith is like far more spiritual, is more steeped in like organized religion or organized Christianity.
yeah,
And it's like, accepting the fact that religion, whether or not the things that they say are going to happen are true or not, it's still a paradigm of moral ethics that give
Yeah.
you a base values to live by that are essentially good and ethical.
yeah,
And it's like, and he kind of just describes like religion for him as just like his spirituality to whatever this deity is. Like whether or not you're ever going to even find out what it is
yeah,
is one thing. But, it's like you can't deny the fact that, like it's the fact that we're even here discussing like things like albums and music is just a biological miracle when you look at the scale of the universe.
yeah,
Like we're an anomaly, and like
Yeah.
there's probably other planets out there and civilizations and stuff, like and like millions of miles away. But like at the end of the day, like I do think that's why a lot of people find it so easy to derive comfort from their faith, because I think
Yeah.
it's one, it gives them that sense of purpose, but two, it also helps them, I think, quantify the bizarre nature of us even being alive.
of existence. Yeah,
Like it's wild when you think about it.
Yeah.
And like the odds of us even being here as who we are like insurmountable when you think of like the amount of sperm that travel towards an egg. It's like so I just happen to be the one
I'm
that
the champion
won the race.
sperm. Yeah.
The first and last time I ever won a race.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
But
I think, it's super interesting. Yeah, and I think there's obviously like a distaste for religion that's very prevalent. It's like it's almost like a constant theme, and it's like an interesting comparison between the two, because there's obviously like a bit of a distaste. Like I was saying, that like what I like so much about Disembowelment is it almost like, although it does acknowledge Christianity in a couple of places throughout the lyrics and stuff, it almost completely fails to recognize it as any kind of system with any kind of anything that you should respect or something, which gives it that whole dreamy atmosphere, because it feels like, well, I know all that stuff's out there.
Yeah.
Whereas like this is like there's that rock and roll kind of like fuck these broken institutions feel to this thing. Like the album, the people that made this album, in Phlebotomized, like they're passionate and they care about, they want everyone to be happy. They want a society where people can look out for each other and support their family and all this kind of stuff. And they're kind of taking aim at what they see to be, as kind of negative, you know, things. And they're kind of and they kind of come out good.
Well, I think the interesting point is that according to I think the liner notes in online, the lyrics were actually written by the drummer Lawrence Payne.
No way, that's interesting.
Which is strange, because you look at the track listing on this album and say the track listing on Sky Contact.
Yeah.
And not only is there a noticeable shift in musical direction, but like lyrically, like, because obviously there's a lot of song titles on here that are very, traditionally kind of death metal sound and title tracks, like like Desecration of Alleged Christian. They even like Subtle Disbalance Liquidity. That sounds like a death metal track.
that makes me think of that Queensryche song, Silent Lucidity.
Oh yeah, Silent Lucidity. Yeah.
Is the game over, or has it just begun?
But it's funny, because I feel like just quickly, one last point I want to make on the whole like anti-Christian rhetoric is, there's a few bands that have done it and made it their thing, and it's worked well for them, like Deicide, for example.
Yeah,
like
Deicide rock, dude.
Yeah, that's their shtick, and they're the ones that kind of like really propagated it and have made.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like the
I mean,
dudes went
the
full.
name of the band, right?
Yeah.
Kill God.
I mean, that, and he's went full hog and got an inverted crucifix fucking branded
tight.
onto his
That
head.
shit rules. I don't care.
So like he's committed.
Yeah,
And, like, but when other bands
played
like,
his
do it,
cards.
it's just like, oh, what should we write lyrics about? Oh, let's just do Satanism or.
I get why it's I completely understand why a lot of American bands end up going that way, because a lot of American conservative Christian values are fucking galling if you have to live with them.
Yeah.
Like if you come from the Midwest or something, or Texas, and you fucking grew up around a lot of those people having to go to church and stuff, I'd probably be pretty pissed too. Like I ended up going to a couple of churches when I was younger, and I was just like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
But also, as I grew up, I was like, oh, there's a lot more to existence than just hating Christianity. So that's why it's not my constant
It's not worth the effort, is it? That's the thing.
Not really.
There's more productive things you could be doing.
Yeah, it's just like I've also met a whole bunch of Christians who are really nice people and like live by the word of God, and they're not doing any harm to anyone.
Yeah.
So like, I don't hate those people. It's just like any religion. It's like some people are like, oh, I hate Muslims. And it's like, no, you hate the bad ones.
Yeah.
There are good ones you haven't met yet who are really kind people, who are really nice and actually live by the word of the Quran. And even if there's something in there that's, you know, they don't like it, they don't do it.
Yeah. It's true. It's just like, you know, it's just going back to that thing is that what you hate is evil people. And, and
everyone
dickheads,
should hate
frankly.
evil people and dickheads. That's the
To tell you
basic.
the one time I ever went to church, it was my cousin for a bit. Well, he will remain unnamed, but he knows who he is. Not like he watches us anyway. But he had a little phase where he was like into going to church for a bit, and I don't know, maybe a few of his friends were into it, and he just got into it by proxy.
Yeah.
And I was visiting him in Scotland, just like, oh, please come. And I was like, oh, okay. Sounds really boring. And he was just like, right. At the time, McDonald's had just launched like the supersized thins.
Okay.
It was just like, if you come, I'll buy you a supersized strawberry milkshake. And I'm just like, I'm fucking sold.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
I'm done.
Like,
I was like,
just
I'm
dreaming
in.
about
And it was the longest 2 hours of my life, I must say. It was fucking mind-numbingly boring.
I don't care.
But then again, it's not for me. I didn't go there with any intention of
Enjoying
receiving the words of Christ or being enlightened. I went there with, I need to sit through this to get my milkshake.
To get my milkshake. That's it. And you did. And you got your
I
goddamn
did,
milkshake. Yeah.
So I've got Jesus to thank for that milkshake.
Thanks for the milkshake, Jesus.
Right, should we move on to the next track?
Do we do Mellow of the Reverberations?
That's the last proper track, I would say, because the last one's more of like it's a great track, but it's more of like a kind of like a closing kind of ballad.
Oh, the lyrics
I think
to
this
this
is the
one
last
are
track that
wild.
incorporates all their main elements anyway.
Yeah.
And it's not some quite cool, like almost I'd say like post-metal-esque kind of clean passage before like the violins kick in again. And one thing I really like about this track and the band in general is the way they build atmosphere and suspense. It's in the name of the title. It's obviously immense, intense suspense.
Yep.
Actually, 3 words you can
What
use
a weird
to describe
album
the
name.
album.
Yeah, it's true.
So I don't know if that's something that was deliberately done, but like there's something cool they really do where they where the chords on the electric guitar kind of build in, but then it just cuts out.
Yeah.
And they do that a few times before it actually does like eventually kick in. And they do a great job of kind of subverting your expectations of when like a drop or like a riff is about to come in. And it's normally like a good 30 seconds later than you think. So you're just totally on your toes a lot of the time with this band.
Yeah, it's very apt. It's a very strange album name, but it's also very apt, and it really works. Absolutely, it doesn't. When you know the album, it doesn't seem weird.
Nah.
But yeah, the lyrics to this song are interesting.
Oh, go on, let's hear them.
Eyelids fall and shut, soon to reach fantasy. Capture the angel's hand to flow towards blissful ecstasy. She placed her hand in mine, simply indoctrinated, pre-serenity. Let this heavenly warmth forever be. Mellow are the river. I'm not going to miss that bit. Yeah, where was it? I was looking at it. Yeah, mellow are the reverberations, a jewel of impeccable grace, a stroke of the finest lace. Nature happily hums its tune. The sunnier the weather, the greater the joy. The great waterfall bows over the caves, seemingly roofless, yet a pleasing immensity. It's like weird. It's like going into like nature shit, but then there's this kind of thing of like, I'm holding hands with an angel. It's really strange. I love it.
Yeah, it's just fucking... It just sounds like they're having fun. It's like what you were saying, right?
But it's not, but again, it's not goofy. It's not fucking dumb. I don't know what it is. Oh, this is interesting. A reprobative locality, black is all that I can see. A reprobative locality, a cave dweller, one was meant to be. I wonder if that's a reference to the figure on the album cover.
Ah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always just presumed it was Gollum. I don't know why, just because it looks so similar.
It looks
to
very
him.
Gollumish,
But
doesn't
there's
it?
no references at all to Lord of the Rings on this album. So.
No. Thankfully, man, when I listen to Led Zeppelin and he's like, the evil Gollum stole that ring, I'm like, that shit sucks. I love Zeppelin, but when he starts talking about Lord of the Rings shit, I'm like, this sucks.
It's a very hackneyed trope now that there's a lyrical theme.
Yeah.
Like Blind Guardian, I will say I like when Blind Guardian do it, but like
It's not the thing itself, it's like the way he does it. But yeah, I guess it's because it's like looking back. Yeah. I'm sure there's other bands that have
I think
done
it
well.
lends well to power metal as a theme, which is why I like when Blind Guardian do it. But there's so many black metal bands that do it as well, and so many bands that took their name from Golgoroth,
Yeah.
Burzum,
Yeah.
and Monomarth.
Yeah. Oh shit! Is that from it as well?
The monomorph is Mount Doom.
Of course it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
What's the other one?
Cinder
Not
Info.
Dol Guldur. What's the? Yeah. There's another band like that.
That's it's a Summoning album. I mean, Summoning as
Oh,
well.
Cirith
I mean,
Ungol, that's what I was
most
thinking
of
of.
their albums are Lord of the Rings based.
Yeah.
They've got
Okay.
like Dol Guldur and
Yeah.
Isengard. Oh, obviously Fenris's other band's called Isengard as well.
Oh, is it? I didn't know
it's
that.
quite it's quite a good project.
That's cool.
But this last track, second last track, Mellow the Reverberations. They've got some Peter Steele-esque cleans here as well.
There's some really typo negative sounding guitar in this album.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I totally meant to make a note of that and didn't. Yeah. Yeah, it really sounds, but I guess this would be pre-typo, wouldn't it? I guess.
Would it? I'm not. See, I'm not a big typo fan. I've never been
dude,
too
I love
into them, so
typo.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Like the chronology of their albums, I am not clued up on.
I just like typed in typo negative, one of the top Google searches, typo negative racist. I don't think they are.
I do love that clip of Peter Steele on the Jerry Springer show.
I love
He's
it.
just
I love
a
it.
charming guy.
I think the thing is, like, people just don't get it. He had this he was very New York, and he was very like,
Kind of like sarcastic.
he was super sarcastic. Yeah, and I think his comedy and the way he told jokes and stuff didn't age very well. Like, if you don't know who he is, it can come across as very like different if you look at it in the context of the world we live in today.
When did Bloody Kisses come out?
Bloody Kisses came out in 1993, interestingly enough.
Okay.
Is there a bit... See, this is super interesting, looking at these and going, oh, Nevermind came out in 91.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to look at it in the context of when certain albums and stuff came out. So this, was the year after. Again, doubt very much it was directly influenced. It's probably more about... Because I wonder sometimes as well, you got to think about... on certain years, certain gear became available on the market, certain guitar gear. So there would have been certain years where like a particular phaser pedal would have become available for sale and people would be like, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
You know, so it might just be that they like both use the same phaser pedal.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why it sounds similar. And it's probably nothing to do with I doubt very much that Phlebotomized was like, oh, we want this bit to sound like Typo.
Yeah.
Again, considering the album came out the year before. But yeah, like super interesting. But it is if you listen to this album, you know Typo Negative, you'll know the bits I mean. Like there's certain parts where like just the way it feels, it's so lush, the guitars, and it's so all the best bits of like Typo Negative guitar kind of really are kind of in this as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to look at like how like bands sound, because I suppose it makes complete sense, right, with the whole gear aspect.
Yeah.
Of why so many bands why there's you've got like pockets of styles and sounds within a certain region or time frame. Like it just makes complete sense. Yeah,
it's like it's really interesting because now you've got like so there was like a big thing with like the Gothenburg sound was there's Studio Friedman, which recorded like In Flames and all of those bands and At the Gates and stuff back in the day. He pioneered a particular technique of recording two microphones at a particular angle pointed at a cabinet in a particular way.
Oh, okay.
And he invented his own mic holder to put on the thing so you could put them. It's like a very particular thing that people weren't really doing.
Yeah.
And then Studio Friedman like pioneered that technique, and then that kind of became like the groundwork for like what everyone does with that kind of music now and how we kind of do that. It's super interesting, like going through those certain things. And of course now a lot of stuff is just kind of digital, and people use reamping, which is where you would record like your guitar directly into a computer. So you have like the clean, just you playing the actual guitar without any distortion or anything on it. And then what you can do is feed the signal back out of the computer into an amplifier. So you can, like, I can record in the UK and send it to a guy in Australia who can play my guitar tracks out of his computer into his like 5150 PV amp and record it in his room. So he's still getting a mic'd up guitar, but I've played all the bits and I've played it along to a click track, so he knows exactly. So you can still get like mic'd up room guitars recorded on the other side of the world. Yeah. You know, but obviously you just couldn't do it at this point in history. No. So there's like all this innovation, and like there's not really a good argument for why you shouldn't do that, apart from like live recording and wanting to get a band all in one go, which is something I'm a big fan of, and something we did on the first Lowen album. But I suppose you've got, I suppose things like Carbon Footprint. I suppose if you've got band members that are spanning, like vast parts of the world, like, it's just not really logical to get together to do it. But there is something cool, and I think we talked about this when we reviewed it like a year ago or whenever it was, when we reviewed Jane Doe by Converge. It's so interesting to hear how they recorded that album. It's so punk, it's so DIY,
and they had things like, like fucking, I can't remember if it was Kurt or Jacob, because they were in such a cramped room. One of them was able to help choke the cymbals.
Yeah,
while the other
yeah.
was, and it was just sounded so fucking like, and when you listen to the album, just like, this sounds like messy and chaotic, but like still very skillfully played.
I mean, it's super interesting. There was someone again on Heavy Hole. I can't remember who it was, but I was listening to an interview. Oh, I think it was Paul Rydell, actually. He was saying that from Blood Incantation, and he was saying they recorded all of Hidden History of the Human Race. That's the big one, right? Yeah. They recorded that all on tape, live.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's not digital.
Yeah.
That's why I think that's part of why everyone was like, "Whoa, this album fucking rules."
Yeah.
Because he was like, tape just sounds better, and he's like, it just does. Like, it's like digital recording is really good and accurate, and it's like no one's saying it's shit, but there's just this extra like phantasmal thing you get out of recording to tape. Like, it's less convenient, absolutely, but if you're a band that know your shit and you've rehearsed and you're all in the same room and you record all that shit, you can still overdub guitars over the top to do all the stuff you can't actually physically play in one go. But there's just this extra nascent X factor that you do get out of recording to tape. It's a complete fucking pain in the ass, but it's worth it, man. And a lot of these albums we're reviewing, I wonder how much of it was like, I wonder how much of Disembowelment was digital. I don't know how early people were really using Pro Tools and stuff.
I think, well, because I suppose they say the Black Album is what the apex of analog recording, isn't it? And then, so I think it's not long after the Black Album that digital recording started becoming more prevalent. I don't know. I mean, definitely do not know enough about production in engineering to
Black
know
Album
when.
was 91. Damn.
Was it 91?
That's wild, man.
That's crazy. But it's like,
can you imagine Nevermind and Black Album coming out in the same year? That's wild.
Yeah, that's
two of the most famous, popular albums of all time. Both came out at around the same time.
I had the Black Album down as about 93, 94.
Like, me too. I was right at 95. Yeah.
But that's cool what you say about the Blood Incantation album, because like, I think for a lot of people that are into death metal, when they first heard it, they were just like, oh my God, this sounds like old school Morbid Angel.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's part of why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but I was going to say, when we were listening to, I think we went back and we were like talking about a bunch of like new metal songs that we like kind of liked, ironically or whatever. And we would go back and like listen to some of them. We were like, God damn, this sounds like dog shit. Like the recording, there would be no depth to the fucking riffs. There was just nothing there. It was all just compressed as fucking tinny. Yeah. And there's just nothing going on there. Yeah, it's just like really, it's really interesting. But again, like going a lot these like early 90s bangers, I bet a lot of this stuff was like, I don't know, you can only assume it was on tape, or at least it wasn't all digital to the point of like strangling the complete life out of everything. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah. You would think that there was some more organic elements, even if there was like a bit of digital kind of like involvement. It's it's why I'd love to be a fly on the wall for when a lot of these albums are recorded, right? Yeah. I think that is like the dream for a lot of like metal fans, to actually have been there when shit was laid down. Yeah.
Oh, did you ever watch that documentary? I linked you to that Morbid Angel recording.
No.
That's so fucking interesting, dude. No. Watch that. It's insane the shit they were doing to try and they invented one bit of gear just for this Morbid Angel album. Yeah. To do something that couldn't be done before that point.
Which album was this?
It was like I think it was like The Sickness. What's the fucking one of the ones that no one ever talks about?
Formulas.
Yeah, that one. Formulas Have Made Fables of the Flesh. Yeah. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Right, shall we round it out here with the last track on this
album? I think we're done, man. I don't know how long we've done, but I think it's a long one.
Yeah, it is a long one indeed. So, last track, just simply titled Gone. There's another song I really love called Gone, also done by Catatonium from the Discouraged One album. Another album, another time. The second time I've mentioned that album. And this is another song. So I could tell it's getting late. I'm just like, I'm mispronouncing everything.
Oh fuck! It's 2:00. When did that happen? It was like 10:30 a minute ago.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't realize it got so late. Jesus Christ!
Time's flew. It's this song I don't think should really work because the vocals, it's that strange Hetfield kind of like crooning, and it's like over dramatic and like over enunciated. But I'm
not big
on
this one. Yeah, you love it. That's good. Okay, cool.
No, I love it. I think it's great.
Awesome. Awesome.
And I actually do think it's got a fair amount of emotion to it, like especially when like the impassioned, like kind of harsh, like semi-harsh yells come into it. I think it's actually a really good like closer to the album. So I think it's just kind of like the cherry on top of the cake, because it's a relatively simplistic song compared to like the tracks that have come before it, which have been so frenetic and schizophrenic. So it's so good to just have like a bit more of a mellow and kind of emotive closer
to round it all off.
to a bonkers album.
Yeah, and again, it kind of nicely brings it back to those early kind of crooning albums and the vocals in the album as well.
Yeah.
Kind of brings it full circle. It's really nice. But yeah, what a great album.
But it's just absolutely fantastic. And, I think there's definitely, man, there's so many albums we can explore. I feel like Cathio Flame is a must.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think that is everything I have to say about the album. We got any closing?
I love it. Check it out. Listen to it. Buy it on Bandcamp for free because they'll put it on all the streaming services. But I'm sure these guys really would appreciate the likes and follows. They're giving it up again for Phlebotomized. I think they're playing Brutal Assault. I'm not sure if they're playing Hellfest. I can't remember. But they're starting to play gigs again. And I just love it when bands like this come out of retirement, even if it's like only a couple of original members. I think that they deserve the support. I think any artist that created a piece of work if Disembowelment came out of retirement and like half the guys went in the back, I wouldn't give a shit. I would still just be trying to go and see them and support them because they have made incredible bits of art and I really think they deserve the support. So go and chuck them some likes, chuck them some things because I promise you both these albums are 100% worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely.
If you aren't already
your thing, I think there's just something any fan of extreme music or death metal can appreciate from both of these albums.
Absolutely.
But yeah, anyway, let us know what you think of these albums, or if there's any other albums or hidden gems you want us to discover. I'm always up for listening to new bangers.
Yeah, recommendations would be interesting. You got any 90s death metal bangers? Oh, Crimson Thorn.
Crimson Thorn?
Oh, we should do a Christian episode of Crimson Thorn and Paramecia.
Yeah, that'd be mental, yeah. It's because the thing is, I think even to this day, there's so many albums like from that 1990 to 98 period that just went completely under the radar.
Yeah, totally did. Yeah, and I think not enough people talk about them. More people talk about them, more people listen to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for watching. If you sat through all, 2.5 hours, I think that was all in.
Yeah, I don't care, man. This episode was for us.
It's true.
If people like it, I don't give a shit.
But subscribe, all that good social media shit. And I will see you all on the next episode. Peace out.
Peace.